everyone. Thank you all for joining this webinar. This is my fourth webinar on Scrum Scale. And today's topic is around scaling the product owner. So the last session we did was about the Scrum Master. So now we're going to talk about the product owner. My name is Mohammed Rowther. I've been in the IT industry for about nearly 20 years, working for various clients across London and India. I do a lot of trainings across the globe. I've done trainings in UK, Europe, and other parts of the world. I'm a Scrum Scale trainer and also an Agile coach, helping some of the clients, trying to help them and support them in the journey. I'm on my journey towards doing SPC as well. So I know there's going to be a lot of questions around Scrum Scale and SAFe. So maybe we can try and see how we can get through them. Right. Looking at the current situation, COVID has changed all our lives and the way we work and the way we live as well. We've all adapted to the new things. We've all adapted to the new way of looking at things, the Agile way. You could call it as Agile way. So you can see a lot of companies that changed their perspective in terms of remote working, in terms of learning from home, in virtual training. Everything has been changed. But what's impacted is some of the businesses, some of the small companies have had really a tough time during this phase. That's because the main reason for this could be that they're not able to adapt to the environment changes and to a situation like this. The stock market has crashed, things have changed, but we've seen a few companies that have adapted and have taken a long way to actually try and come out of the situation. One such company is Swift. Recently, they have published an article about this and the research was done through McKinsey and Company. And their CEO mentioned about saying the business objectives were reprioritized. So they were able to do things in a better way because of the agile kind of teams that was already in place. So in contrast, many of the non-agile teams, they started to struggle in this transition and they couldn't be productive. So this kind of a remote setup changed the world completely. If you look at this new research done by McKinsey and Company, they spoke to a few executives around the world and they did an assessment just to check the maturity of Agile within an organization. They did that with the telco companies and they did that with the banking sector as well. They wanted to see how the companies have actually adapted and how they have provided new services during this pandemic period. If you look at the ratings, they had a scale of rating between 6 to 10, where 6 is nearly non-agile systems, and then 10 is highly matured system. They were completely adapted to an agile way of working. Now, if you look at the companies that had adapted into, they were already having an agile operating system, they were able to respond to these changes easily and faster, and also they were able to compete and provide the services quickly as possible to the customers. If you look at the telecom companies, they had to provide services like provide additional data and bandwidth during this period because all of us were working remotely and we wanted our bandwidth to increase. So if you look at the statistics, you can see that agile companies have survived this period much better than a non-agile company. Now,
sorry to interrupt.
Sorry? Yes.
So I see a few participants say that they cannot hear you. I just want to confirm with the others that audio is clear. Can any of you just type into the Q&A box and confirm that you're able to hear Rowther well? Okay, great. So, all right, thank you.
Is it clear?
There's
Or
a lot of people saying it's clear.
Sure.
So the ones who are not able to hear, I'm sure I'll probably send them a message on chat box asking them to check the audio. Yeah.
Okay. Or maybe I can turn off the video if it's actually eating up a lot of bandwidth.
It's pretty clear. It's actually clear for me as well. I just want to check with the participants. Yeah.
No problem. No problem. Thank you. So product owner is one of the key roles within Scrum. Many organizations are undergoing a lot of transformation and they need to change priorities. They need to change things to survive in this kind of a market. And product owner role plays a very important role. They are very essential for any organization. Now, what does a product owner do? What is their role? What do they do? They set the team priorities. They work with the customers and they work with the teams. They try and understand what are the items that needs to go into the backlog based on the vision and based on the roadmap. Now, if you look at the diagram, you can see the what. The vision is interpreted and transformed into a wish list that goes into your product backlog. And anybody can add to this because it's a wish list at the beginning. And then the definition of ready happens, and then once the refinement takes place, your backlog is ready to play for the team. So a Scrum team consists of a team members, Scrum Master, and a product owner. They own the what. Now this is at the team perspective, a Scrum team. And what happens when we scale? How do we scale this? We look at something called as a chief product owner. So where we have multiple teams that coordinate with each other. So if you look at this picture, you can see there is a set of product owner team. This is what we're trying to build. We're trying to build a product owner organization. In my last webinar, we spoke about the Scrum Master organization. There were two entities in Scrum at scale. The coordination takes place and the priorities are set by the chief product owner. So if you look at what the CPO does is they coordinate the priorities and they also align the backlog priorities with the stakeholders and the customer requirements. Now, who can be the chief product owner? Who is this person? It can be anybody from this product owner organization. It could be an individual who's part of or a set of the within the network of the teams, or you can also have an individual entity, a person who's solely responsible in this role. Now with this, who's responsible for the efficient delivery of the product increments? We have the product owner side of it, we have the Scrum Master side of it. We want to deliver a product that is completely done with the Scrum of Scrums. So you have the Scrum of Scrums master who collaborates with the chief product owner. They work towards efficient delivery of this product increment. And this has to be aligned with your release plan. If you look at the way this has been designed, the way it actually, you mentioned a chief product owner or a chief product owner or a Scrum of Scrums or a Scrum of Scrums. Now these naming conventions is based on what you want to apply. It could be anything within your organization. It's not a compulsion that you have to follow the same thing. So there is no specific term associated with these expanded units, nor do the chief product owners of them have specific expanded titles. So each organization is encouraged to develop their own. Now we have a team, we have the chief product owner. Now let's look at a concept called as MetaScrum. A MetaScrum is a forum where the entire enterprise can align behind this product owner's backlog at every level of Scrum in the organization. Now, if you look at this, this is purely a kind of a legacy kind of a management structure. You can see that the management is overriding the product owners. There's a lot of interference happening to the Scrum team. In order to avoid that, we want a MetaScrum PO. We want somebody who can actually collate, who can actually align things between the management, the stakeholders, and the product owners. Now, if we start looking at a higher level, let's say I want to build more teams. I have a network of CPOs. I have another network. Now, who's going to coordinate here? We can have a CCPO. So what we call as a chief product owner. Now, to fulfill the product owner role for the entire organization, the chief product owner meets with the executives. So I'm trying to build a network here. And who's going to coordinate these interfaces? We have somebody called as an executive MetaScrum, what we say EMS. So the communication happens between the interfaces rather than involving all the entities, rather than involving all the people within the organization. So in this way, we can avoid the communication overhead. Now, this is a forum of leadership and other stakeholders. They try to express their preferences to the PO team. They negotiate their priorities, they can alter budgets, they can try and realign what needs to go into the product, what needs to be removed out of the product. So the EMS is like a guiding coalition. It's your leadership team that plays an important role on the product owner side of it. Just to recap, looking at how it is at a team level. So you've got, this is your team level. The one in red is your team level. That's your PO. Now, if you're building a network of teams, you'll have a CPO. You have a few product owner team members. If you start expanding and go higher, so if you have many value streams, you have the executive MetaScrum who play an important role. Now, the executive MetaScrum is a dynamic group of leaders. They set the organization vision. They they work on the strategic priorities. They align all the teams around the common goals. And that's important, to work towards the common goal. What does your organization want to achieve? What products they're working on? What is the vision? You need to understand that and work towards that goal. Alignment is key. We talk about alignment, we talk about priorities, we talk about getting a common understanding, a shared understanding towards the common goal. That's important. Now, one of the events that takes place is called a MetaScrum event. And this happens at least once a sprint where everybody gather. It's purely run by the chief product owner who starts coordinating everything. If we look at the Scrum Scale framework, you've got the product owner cycle and you've got the Scrum Master cycle. Now, how are we going to coordinate this? What? The product owners, the chief product owners, and the executive MetaScrum, they work together to satisfy all the components that's within the product owner cycle. That's your strategic vision, the backlog prioritization, the refinement, and the release plan. They all work together, and you have enough support from the executive MetaScrum who is part of the leadership team. Now, this is where the guiding coalition comes through. A lot of frameworks, a lot of scaling frameworks talk about guiding coalition, and the two guiding coalition within the Scrum at Scale framework is the EMS and the EAT, the executive MetaScrum that stays within the product owner cycle, and the executive action team that sits on the Scrum Master cycle. Here you can see there's two hierarchical systems. You got on the left hand side, you've got the traditional way of working, and then you've got the network way of doing. It's a dual operating system. This is from the book Accelerate by John P. Cotter. So when you're trying to do a transformation, and if you try to do a all at once transformation, you're going to fail. We never recommend that. Try and create a reference model, just like what we have here. Create a reference model, a small network of teams with a guiding coalition. That's your EMS and EAT. They all work together. Try and remove any kind of impediments within the organization. and that can actually satisfy as a reference and a prototype, and it can be scaled across the organization. SAFe uses a similar kind of concept. They use the guiding coalition concept, and with a set of teams like this, you are trying to establish an agile ecosystem. Why do we want to establish this agile ecosystem? We're not trying to wipe off the hierarchical system. We want your managers to become leaders. That's one of the key things. We want your managers to become leaders who can actually drive the change, who can support the change. And the product owners, they set the priorities. So then your teams become more self-managed. The environment that you're building is more sustainable. And in a situation like this, in a situation where we are, where in terms of lockdown, in terms of this COVID-19 situation, we want to have a sustainable environment. All the companies need to survive. So we need to move towards a way of working, that new way of working that actually helps the organization and the people. So the management they need to become more of a leader. They have to change. So you can coach the teams to self-organize, self-manage, and try and get your team to self-form against the prioritized backlog. That's very important. When you become more sustainable, nothing can slow you down. If you look at all these scaling frameworks, they talk about leadership support. They talk about a few things about how to create teams and everything. So we look at a few of them. We've got Scrum at Scale. We've got SAFe, Scaled Agile Framework. There's Nexus. There's Large Scale Scrum, and there's DAD, Disciplined Agile Delivery. Looking at SAFe, the basis and the foundation is Scrum, even in SAFe. So that's what you see towards the team level. You have an agile team, they have a team backlog, they have a mix of Scrum and Kanban. It promotes collaboration. It looks at doing a PI planning, where you have a PI planning for about between 8 to 12 weeks. So ideally people do it, some of the companies do it for 10 weeks. And there's a lot of design thinking and customer centricity happens. So it's more of a mindset. So customer value is important. And if you look at the layers, you can see that there's different configuration. There's essential, there's a large solution, and there's also a portfolio. So you've got different areas that you want to work through. Now within the SAFe framework, it talks about the guiding coalition, just similar to what we saw in Accelerate, the John P. Cotter's book. The framework as such can easily get into any organization that's quite hierarchical. But if you want something simple, you want something that needs to go and drive through an environment where Scrum is being used, you have a choice to use Scrum at Scale or SAFe. Now, if you look at the differences, the roles, there's a Scrum team, there's a Scrum Master, and a product owner within SAFe and Scrum at Scale. What all as Scrum of Scrums, the Scrum of Scrums Master. Within the SAFe environment, we call that as team of teams and an RTE. The RTE's role is nothing but the Scrum of Scrums Master. A release trained engineer works, he's like a Scrum Master for the entire network of teams. And you've got some of the values that's within SAFe. It's the same thing. SOS is a release team. The Scrum of Scrums is a release team. Like how you have in SAFe, you've got the team of teams, they work towards a release. So they all work towards an incremental product release, but at different iterations. So in Scrum at Scale, what you use is your sprint duration. It could be 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So ideal setup is 2 weeks. In SAFe, you've got your program increment, and you've got different iterations that happens in between. If you look at other areas of SAFe and Scrum at Scale, you've got the EAT, the Agile Practice team in Scrum at Scale. It is like the center of excellence or LACE in SAFe, where they actually ensure that the Scrum or the Agile process within the organization is being done properly, or the SAFe implementation is being implemented correctly. The center of excellence could have SPCs, it could have people who are quite like a change agents. Similar to the Scrum at Scale, you have the Agile Practice team who are responsible to check the quality of Scrum within the organization. So they ensure that the Agile ecosystem is built in. So in terms of building the reference model, in terms of getting all the Scrum Masters coaching and training and everything, that happens with support and the training ability from Agile Practice team. If you look at the core values, SAFe has a few core values. It's similar to what we have in the Scrum values and pillars. You've got the house of lean, the principles, and the value-driven culture like transparency, inspection, adaptation, and then you have all your Scrum values. What about the PI planning? The PI planning is a long event. So it happens every 10 weeks. And in the Scrum at Scale environment, all the events resemble what happens within a Scrum environment. So you have scaled events, like you have the scaled sprint planning, you have the scaled sprint retro, you have the scaled reviews. So everything is at the scale level. And all this happens within the duration of 2 weeks to 4 weeks. Now, PI planning and the inspect and adapt are similar to what we do in retro. So if you look at the retrospective, you take a few things, you talk about what went well, what did not go well, and what can be improved. It's almost similar to what we do in a Scrum environment. Talking about less is large scale Scrum. They've got two different frameworks. One, it talks about if you want to do it within a small environment, a few teams, you can use that. You can use a less within a smaller area. But if you're trying to work with multiple teams, if you want to have a larger implementation, there is another product that is within the less. It's called the less huge that can be used. Now, one thing in less that you have to observe is one Scrum Master serves 1 to 3 teams. That's not applicable in Scrum at Scale. That we haven't seen that happening. So in less, one Scrum Master can serve 1 to 3 teams. It consists of cross-functional teams, the cross-component full stack feature teams. There's about 3 to 9 people within the Scrum team. They all work together, they integrate the products and form a potentially shippable product. So the basis and the foundation is Scrum. If you look at Nexus, they have a dedicated team for integration that works between a couple of teams. And you can say it's applicable only for about 3 to 9 teams. And all the integration happens within a certain duration. Now, if you want to scale up, if you want to have a larger implementation that is more than 100 people, there's something called as Nexus Plus framework that you can use. But if you are trying to work within 3 to 9 Scrum teams, this implementation allows you to apply the Scrum principles, and all the events are prefixed by Nexus. So you have your Nexus sprint planning, you've got your Nexus sprint backlog, you have the Nexus sprint review, and all the events are Nexus prefixed. The other framework that I want to talk about is called the Disciplined Agile Delivery. It's a kind of a hybrid framework that builds upon a few of the software methods and frameworks. It encourages the BDD and other areas. It's a kind of a non-prescriptive framework, and it looks at about 5 different areas It talks about the agile basics, the lean mindset, and the CI/CD, the continuous delivery within the agile and lean, and also uses the lean startup fundamentals. So if you look at the statistics of some of the frameworks that's being used in the market, there's SAFe and there's Scrum of Scrums, that's your Scrum at Scale, that's widely used. All the others have a market share of about 5 to 10%. Now, the first Scrum at Scale prototype was done in 1983, way before any of these frameworks came in. This was established within a business unit for a bank, and they formed a cross-functional team where you got all the people from different areas involved. So you had the sales, you had the marketing, you had support team members. Everybody started working together, and this set of cross-functional team had they were kind of loss-making. They were using up all the revenue. They were exceeding the cost by 30%. So 6 months, when Scrum at Scale was implemented, their profit increased by 30%, by 60%. The margin swing. So from a minus 30%, they went up to 30% positive. So Scrum at Scale was used by IDX, which is now called as GE Healthcare. It's being used by Fidelity. A lot of other companies have used it. And one such company that used the Scrum at Scale framework was Spotify. What you observe, you can have a look at the case study in Scrum at Scale website. How the key patterns of Scrum at Scale framework help the engineering culture of Spotify. They focused on few things. They focused on continuous improvement, innovation, and also continuous deployment, CI/CD. So they had a coalition, a team that actually helped them, the executive MetaScrum. That's a part of your product owner cycle. So they call it as strategy days. So they had the leadership support. And if you look at the way the components have been structured, you've got the teams with a product owner, and you've got a chief product owner. It's just a different representation of how Scrum at Scale is. Instead of calling Scrum Masters, Spotify's model used Agile coaches. They didn't call them a Scrum team, they called them as squads. It's just a naming convention. It's a flexibility. So you can use any naming convention you want, as long as your basis and your foundation and the fundamentals are right. Toyota, when they implemented, before they implemented Scrum at Scale, they had an IT department where you had about 4,500 people who were mostly outsourced, and they couldn't deliver a system. They couldn't. They missed all the delivery. They did not do any delivery for about 5 years. So once they started implementing, their team size from 200 people was reduced to 25 people. They formed 3 small teams, and they were able to do a delivery within 6 months. This case study is available on Scrum at Scale website. You've got the Toyota North American case study that you can have a look at it. There's a complete detail about how things changed from 200 people to 25 people. And they were all not removed. They were all made to go into different departments, different areas, and how the delivery cycle changed from 5 years to 6 months. If you look at Tesla and 3M, they were able to deliver a new solar panel roof within 4 to 5 weeks. What did they work on? They worked on the backlog refinement. They worked on MetaScrum, the product owner side of it, and also getting the ground rules, getting things right. Your Scrum is completely fixed. You've got a foundation that's strong enough. That's important, a solid foundation. And they were able to deliver within 4 to 5 weeks. They created one team with the leadership support, and they were able to deliver a quick solar panel roof in California and other parts of the world. This was later expanded. And if you see the stock prices, the stock price started climbing from 84 billion to $149 billion. So why should I use Scrum at scale? What is the reason for it? One of the biggest challenge, the culture and the resistance. The culture within the Scrum at scale is a value-driven culture. It creates a healthy and a positive environment for you. It builds that ecosystem that allows you to transform within and help you to build that agile enterprise. It's a scale-free architecture. You can have n number of teams. You can start, the network can grow. The scale-free architecture exists within internet. It allows you to grow with there's no limitation. And you apply the basics of Scrum and Lean within your area. So the basics of Scrum is what you apply. It is not prescriptive. It's not prescriptive like some of the frameworks. It all depends on your context, your environment, and your culture. Assess your environment. Look at what is important, what is best for your environment, and try and work on that areas. That's important. It gives you that flexibility. So this is a quote from Intel, pointed out that nothing scales except a scale-free architecture. So he explained, the Intel, so they explained that Intel pointed out that every component on the chip have the same model as every other component, and nothing weird can happen. Scrum at scale will drive higher quality product, higher market share, and help you in improving your company valuation. There's quite a lot of case studies that you can have a look in Scrum at Scale library. If you go on to scrumatscale.com, you can look at the case studies done by Toyota, Spotify. There's about manufacturing. There's about gas industry. You can look at Bosch. That worked on embracing agility. They've got some 3M and SAP's case studies. You can look at multinational banking. If you're working in banking industry, you've got different case studies that give you examples of how Scrum at Scale has been implemented. And Infosys is one of the platinum partner for Scrum at Scale. They have a few clients that use Scrum at Scale. So if you look at all these companies, the basis of the foundation is Scrum. So well implemented Scrum can run an entire organization with Scrum at Scale as the operating system to build that sustainable operating system. That's what we want to do. If you want to learn more about Scrum at Scale, we have a virtual environment at the moment with high quality slides, visual concepts. There's a lot of activities that takes place. Contact Knowledgehut or contact me directly. We do classes every fortnight on the weekends, and we have some weekday batches. What do I cover? We cover the basics of Scrum and some of the core competencies. Learn the what and the why of Scrum at Scale. You understand how to scale the Scrum Master cycle and the product owner cycle, and then you build your own backlog. So over the 2 days, you build your backlog, and that backlog is related to your environment. So you have a scaling backlog that you can take back to your environment and start looking at what areas you want to work on. We do an assessment model within the 2 days. We have a lot of assessment things that happens, and you can then look at trying to implement that across your area. Towards the end of the course, there's a test that enables you to answer a few questions. Well, about 30 questions. It's quite a simple test. And then you get a certificate. It's called a certified Scrum at Scale practitioner. So we have the Scrum at Scale, which is a joint venture between Scrum Alliance and Scrumming. So you can also use your points for continuous education. So you get about 16 points. Now, why should I do this certified Scrum at Scale practitioner? What are the reasons for it? I can take up the certification. I can join as a Scrum Master in any organization. I could be a team of teams. I could be a Scrum of Scrum's Master. I could join as a product owner, and also a chief product owner. So if I want to scale, if I'm actually working with a multiple Scrum teams, I can choose any of these roles. If you're working in a single team as a Scrum Master, and if you're trying to expand yourself, you want to increase, you want to excel from a single team, you want to become a team of teams Scrum Master, just like how you have in SAFe, you've got the release train engineer, you've got the solution train engineers. So you want to grow, you can be a Scrum Master. This is one of the jobs I saw on one of the sites. They have a role called Scrum Master of Scrums. So things are getting recognized. You could also take up leadership roles. You can be a part of the leadership teams. You can join as an agile transformation leader in some of the organization. You can also be a part of the agile practice lead, just like how you have a center of excellence where you can build that ecosystem within your organization. You can help coach, train individuals in various Scrum teams and try and establish that. You can be a change agent. So you have a lot of opportunities that will help your career. You can move from a Scrum Master to a Scrum Master and move towards an agile practice lead. Looking at the job perspective, this is what I found this morning. I can see that there's quite a number of roles on Scrum Master, Product Owner, and Agile Coach roles. So you have a great opportunity. So your career path starts with the basic of Scrum, and then you start scaling. You have different scaling frameworks. You can choose any of them and try and choose the one that actually helps you, that benefits you, and what the organization is using.